If you're thinking about making the switch from Adobe to Resolve, this is the video. This is everything that I think you should know. No hype, no marketing speak. By the end of this video, you're going to be confident in your ability to switch over to Resolve. And I think you're going to be as excited as I was to let go of that monthly Adobe subscription. Let's go. So as an overview, DaVinci Resolve is like the entire Adobe kind of video suite wrapped up into one app. Long story short, Resolve itself, that one app, DaVinci Resolve, does what all of these Adobe apps do. And so it's a major advantage when it comes to workflow. So you might notice these icons down here in the bottom of the interface. These are the pages of Resolve. And when you click on one of these pages, it switches out the interface, but it's not just the interface. It actually kind of switches the entire functionality of Resolve and sort of transforms it into a different app. Now, it does this instantly. And what's really amazing is that all of these pages, they all share the same timelines. And so here in the edit page, I have my movie that I'm working on. And if I want to do some color grading on that, I can just switch over to the color page. And here I have all of my clips and I'm ready to do my color grade. If I want to do some compositing on a shot, all I have to do is just be looking at the shot in any page and then switch over to the Fusion page. And now I'm in compositing mode. And I can do stuff like I would in After Effects. And all of these pages roughly correspond to apps in the Adobe suite. For instance, the cut and edit pages, this is kind of like Premiere. The Fusion page is like After Effects. The Fairlight page is like Audition. The Deliver page is kind of like the Media Encoder. And so it's like having all of these apps in one, and they all share a timeline, and it's beautiful. Now, I sort of skipped over the color page, and that's because, well, it's kind of like Lumetri, but it's so far beyond what Lumetri can do that it's not even really worth comparing. We'll get into this in a minute, but if you like color grading and adjusting your footage with Lumetri, you're going to absolutely lose your mind with the color page in a good way, because the color page is like Lumetri on steroids. But let's back up a little bit. I'm going to go down here and click on this home button. And this is going to bring up your project manager. This is the first thing that comes up when you open up Resolve. And this is where all of your projects live. This is where you can save and open and create new projects. And something to mention is that all of these projects live in a library. What the heck does that mean? Well, if we go over here and open this list, we can see that there is a library here. Basically what this is a specific folder on your system, and all of your projects live in that folder. Now, for those of you if you're used to manually managing where your projects are saved and you save each project in its own folder and that kind of thing, this can be a little worrisome. But you can think of it as kind of, this is the master folder with all of your projects. And if you want to save a backup of your project or put it on an external hard drive or package it with the media, there are a lot of ways to do that. One way to do that is to right click and just say export project. And then you can save a DaVinci Resolve project file anywhere on your system. Something to note is if you don't have a project within your library, if you open up that project, it kind of just copies a version of that to your library, and you always work off your library. This is where your projects live. This is where you can save and open them. And down here in the lower right, you can create a new project. I'm just going to use the one that I have open already. And by default, it should throw you into the edit page. Now, one thing you'll want to do before you get too deep into editing is make sure that your project settings are set right. So down here in the lower right, there's this little settings cog. Click on this, and this opens up your project settings. So this is everything that has to do with your specific project. Something you definitely want to look at for sure is your timeline frame rate. Make sure that you like that. A little less important right off the bat, because you can change it later, is the timeline resolution, but this is where you set that. Pretty much right here is what you want to pay attention to. There are also a lot more project settings that you can explore. One of them of note being color management. And this is where you can set your color management for your project, which if you're shooting in log and doing kind of higher end work is especially important. But coming from Adobe, Adobe's not super deep into color management, but if you get a little bit into color grading, which you're going to if you're using DaVinci Resolve, you're going to want to learn a little bit about color management, and this is where the magic happens there, okay? Anyway, make sure that your master settings are good before you start editing. And here I have my project in my timeline. And yeah, if you've used Adobe Premiere, this edit page should look pretty darn familiar. just like in Premiere, we have a timeline down here where we do our major work. We have our viewer up here. This is the timeline viewer. So that's where we're actually going to see what's happening in the timeline. If we go over here to the media pool, this is where all the media that's imported into your project lives. And you can hover scrub or double click to load the media into the source viewer right here. Again, pretty much works exactly like Premiere. In the timeline, you can trim and move things around just like you would expect. You have a blade tool, just like you do in Premiere. And you also have tons of keyboard shortcuts, which you can customize by going up here to where it says DaVinci Resolve and going down to keyboard customization. And there's a very nice keyboard customization panel here. And you can actually go up here to the upper right and set this to Adobe Premiere Pro. And that's going to give you keyboard shortcuts that are very similar to Premiere. And so that would be a good starting point to set your keyboard shortcuts. And anything that isn't there, you can set custom. Like for instance, I have ripple trim start to playhead set as Q and end to playhead as W, just like in Premiere. But you can go in and set keyboard shortcuts to your heart's content. If you have a clip selected in the timeline, you can go up here to the upper right and open the inspector. Just click on this. And this is basically like your effect controls. And there are a lot of native properties of each clip, including transform controls like zoom, rotation, that kind of thing. You can crop clips right here in the timeline. They even have things like stabilization, lens correction, all kinds of cool stuff. This is really, really powerful. If you want to put an effect on your footage, you can go up to where it says effects in the upper left. That's going to open up the effects panel, which you guessed it is a list of effects that you can drop on clips, as well as transitions. You can just drag those in between clips like this, set the duration by dragging. If you click on open effects here, there's things like blurs and all kinds of crazy stuff, keyers, lens flares, that kind of thing. I'll just grab a zoom blur and put this on there so we can see what's going on. After I drop that effect on there, if I select it and go up to my inspector, I can click on effects here and adjust the effects. Again, a lot of this should make perfect sense if you're coming from Premiere. I think if you use Premiere on a regular basis, this should be just no problem. There's little differences, but for the most part, the edit page works like Premiere. The one exception is that there aren't really any color grading effects. There's kind of some like contrast pop. You can drag that on there, but it's not really what you're looking for when it comes to something like Lumetri. All of that kind of stuff is going to happen in the color page, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But let's say you want to do something fancy. Let's say I want to make this into a real lightsaber. This is something that you typically do in After Effects by either right-clicking and dynamically linking, which definitely works all the time, or more likely either opening the original clip or rendering this out and bringing it into After Effects. But in the Resolve ecosystem, all we have to do is just be over this clip, just be looking at it, and then switch over to the Fusion page. And we instantly have our clip with the ins and outs from our edit timeline, and it's ready to do the kind of work that we would do in After Effects. Now, the Fusion page is, of course, Resolve's answer to After Effects. It can do pretty much all of the same stuff, compositing, putting images together, creating graphics, doing 3D stuff. The one big thing that hangs up a lot of people is that this uses nodes. Nodes are just a different way to create kind of the same stuff that you would create in After Effects. The problem is that there's kind of a bigger learning curve here, because if you're coming from After Effects, you're probably used to having some kind of layer stack here, where you have the different layers and the timeline, and that just doesn't exist inside of Fusion. And so this does tend to be a tripping point for a lot of people who are switching from After Effects. But the great thing is that I have lots of videos that teach you the basics of nodes. And I promise, if you are used to using After Effects, 90% of the skills that you've learned over the years will transfer over here to Fusion if you can just be brave and learn a little bit about nodes. But just as a quick example, if I wanted to do something like add a lightsaber blade here, I would do it a lot in the same way that I would do in After Effects. In After Effects, I would probably make either a shape or a solid and add a mask here, like a red solid. And so I can kind of do the same thing. We have this toolbar here, and this doesn't switch your mouse tool. It actually is a way to quickly make a node. So you just drag a node down like this, you select it, and then over here in the inspector, just like in the edit page, it's kind of like your effect controls. You can adjust the properties of that node. So I'll make this red, and I'm going to open up this little button right here, which will give us 2 viewers. And then I can look at what any node is doing just by dragging it up to the viewer. All right. So now we have a red solid. which we call a background, and then I'll add a mask to it. Now, what you would do in After Effects is grab a mask tool and just draw on it. In a similar way, what we can do in Fusion is just select this background node, and I'll just click on one of these masks. I'll click on this rectangle mask like this, and that's going to add a mask to my background, but it's going to connect it to the blue input. Okay, so we have a rectangle mask that's connected to the blue input of this background. And now I can grab this mask and I can move it around either on this left viewer or the right viewer. And so let's maybe move this around like this. And I want to make this red shape like this. And if I want to put this image over this image, I use a merge node. That's this node right here. I can grab this and drag this in between the media in and media out. This is the media from the timeline. This is what we're going to render. Everything fancy happens in between. And so we're going to take this red rectangle and we're going to merge it on top of this footage just by taking the output from this background, plugging it into the green input. And now we have our red lightsaber mask here. Select this rectangle and adjust the softness. And now we're kind of getting somewhere. I'll take this background, drag it over, and then turn it white. And I can just copy and paste this mask. I'll just select it, Control C, select this background, Control V, like that. And let's add another merge, but this time I'm going to do a little shortcut, and I'm going to take the output of this background and drag it over the output of this merge like this, and boom, it makes a merge like that. I can select this rectangle, make it a little bit smaller. There we go. And now we have this glowing lightsaber. Isn't that cool? Now, we should really be doing some color management here. There's all kinds of things that I'm skipping over that we just don't have time to get into in this video. But basically how it works is you build exactly what you would build in After Effects. You just build it with nodes. And what's really cool is that you can at any time switch back over to the edit page and look, it's already in the edit page. It's already there. You don't have to render this out. You don't have to dynamically link it. It's always in the timeline. Isn't that cool? This is a huge, huge workflow advantage. But yeah, Fusion basically does what After Effects does. It just does it in a little bit different way with nodes. There's a lot to learn there, but I have a lot of material teaching you exactly how to use Fusion. So there's no reason to be scared. Now, I want to get into the color page here in a minute, but something I want to mention is that if you're used to using After Effects for things like motion graphics, or if you're used to using Mogart files and different plugins and templates and everything for Premiere, most of the time, those things are not going to work in Resolve. Sometimes they have a Resolve version, but you can't like open a Mogart file in Resolve or anything like that. But we do have quite a few titles and graphics that Resolve ships with, and they work just like you would think. You can just drag them to the timeline and play them back, open up the inspector, adjust text, and it works a lot like a Mogart file does. You can even make your own inside of Fusion. There's all kinds of videos on that on YouTube. And so the same kind of idea is still there, but you can't use like the existing templates that you've purchased just because they don't work in Resolve. But the good news is that there are a lot of people making really great templates and plugins and graphics for Resolve. And one of the very best websites for that kind of thing is Motion VFX. In fact, they're the sponsor of this video. We don't do a lot of sponsors on this channel, but Motion VFX is just freaking awesome. They have tons of different plugins for DaVinci Resolve. And what I love about Motion VFX is their designs are so clean and so easy to put on just about any video. And they're not so specific that you can't use them on a variety of projects. They're really well designed, and getting them into Resolve and getting to work is super easy. Once you buy a plugin on their site, you can install it with their M-Installer app, which automatically puts it in Resolve. And then here in the effects panel under Motion VFX, you have all of the graphics for the pack. And check this out, this is so crazy. These are some graphics from their M-Intro Vibrant plugin, which is just beautiful. Look at that. Oh man. You can select the title in the timeline, and then over here in the inspector, just like you would expect, there are really thoughtful controls. You can switch your logo to text to customize what it says. You can also just switch it to your logo file. So here we have the ground control logo. We can adjust the scale and everything, and all of the effects and everything scales with that logo. Oh my gosh, that looks sick. It's amazing. And it all scales to the length that you need for your title, animates in and out if you want it to. And there's a huge collection of amazing animated graphics in each of their packs. And it would really take a long time to make these kind of things. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that's freaking amazing. And so if you are switching over to Resolve from Premiere and you're looking to have a Resolve answer to MoGart files for your motion graphics, Resolve can do it, and Motion VFX is an amazing place to get those graphics. And you can get a smoking deal on their plugins just by clicking the link in the description down below. Motion VFX is dope, highly recommend. Now let's jump into the color page. Again, just like in the Fusion page, if we just click on the color page down here, that will open up this same timeline in the color page where we can get crazy detailed with our color grades. Now, like I was saying, it's kind of tempting to say this is like Lumetri, and I guess it is in some ways because Lumetri does color, but Resolve is the absolute king of color. Like, look at this demo reel on their website. These are the kinds of projects that are color graded in DaVinci Resolve. I mean, it's big time stuff. Planet of the Apes, Marvel stuff, Ghostbusters, I mean, Alien, crazy. This right here, this tool, this is what they use to color grade Hollywood movies. And it's just available for free, which is ridiculous. So how the heck does it work? Well, one thing that I just can't avoid anymore because it's so important is color management. All right, here's what we're going to do. This isn't really a color page thing, but to really take advantage of the color page, we need to dive into this for a second. This footage is shot in log, which means that it's gray and nasty. The idea being that you have more information packed into this image that we can take advantage of in the color grade, but it looks nasty on screen. So what we need to do is kind of pre-process this so that we have a good starting point. That process is called color management. The easiest way to do that in Resolve is just to go down to our lower right-hand corner and click on that settings cog again and go over to color management. Right here where it says color science, switch this from YRGB to YRGB color managed like this. And for a lot of stuff, you could probably leave it like this, but what I like to do is just a couple more steps, uncheck automatic color management, and here where it says color processing mode, switch this to HDR DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate. It's 2 more steps. You don't have to know exactly what it means. Just set your settings like this if you have log footage, and then hit save. And then what we do is we select all of our footage in our timeline. I can just hit Control A to select everything. Right click and select input color space, and then just pick the camera and color space that you shot with. We shot this in Blackmagic Design Film Gen 5. And now what we have is a great starting point for all of our footage. It's kind of done the initial color grade for us. And honestly, color management is kind of a big confusing topic, which I'll have a detailed video on very soon. But for now, think of it like this. Color management is the first step in doing your color grade. And once you have that set, then you can go crazy in the color page. Now, to actually start color grading your shots, here's pretty much how it works. All of the shots in your timeline are split up by clip, and you can quickly just click on the clip that you want to adjust. There's also a little preview right here of the actual timeline, which a lot of the time I don't really use. We can just go up here to the timeline and kind of close that. Then we have a little bit more real estate. But the workflow is pretty much some version of pick the shot that you want to adjust and then use the tools down here to adjust the shot. You don't have to apply an effect or anything like that. Basically, if you're just looking at the shot, any adjustments that you make down here will apply to that shot only by default. There are a lot of panels and controls down here. If you click on any of these buttons, it actually switches out these lower panels, and there's a lot here. The good news is that you really only need to know a couple of controls down here to do like 80% of what you want to do. If you only learn one panel, I'd recommend that you learn the primary color wheels. That's this section right here. And basically there's only 3 different kinds of controls and they're just kind of repeated. So starting with this circle, this is called the color wheel. You can take the middle of this and push it out in a direction, and that's going to push color into your image. Down below it right here is what we call the master wheel. This is kind of like a slider that you move back and forth like this. If you grab it and drag it to the right, it brightens things. If you drag it to the left, it darkens things, okay? And so why are there 4 sets of these controls? It's because it splits it up in the brightnesses of the image. Offset controls the entire image. So if we want to make the whole image brighter, we grab this and drag it up. If we want to put color into the entire image, we can push around the color wheel. Lift, gamma, and gain are the darkest parts, the midtones, and the lightest parts of the image respectively. So if I want the lighter parts to be brighter, I can go to the gain and push up the master wheel like this, and that's going to make the brighter parts brighter. I can reset any of these controls by clicking on these little reset buttons, either here for just the gain or here for the entire panel. If I want to push a little bit of color into the brighter parts, I can push some color into the gain, and that's going to put more color in the brighter parts of the image. And the lift and gamma work similarly. If I want to make the darker parts blue, I can take the lift and push that towards blue. That's going to mostly adjust the darker parts. If I want to make the shadows a little bit brighter, I can take the lift and push that to the right. That's going to brighten these shadows here, and it's pretty much going to leave the brighter parts untouched. You can reset that. And then gamma is the midtones. So it's pretty much going to leave the blackest part and the whitest part of the image alone, and just adjust the parts in the middle, okay? Both in the brightness with the master wheel, as well as color with the color wheel. There are also these controls and these controls, which are called the primary controls. And these adjust other properties of the image. For instance, the saturation, you can grab this number and drag it to the right, and that's going to make things more saturated. Drag it to the left, it's going to make things less saturated. You can double click on the actual word here to reset it. And same thing for hue, contrast, that kind of thing. Temperature, tint. And so yeah, this panel has enough controls to really do, 80% of what you'd want to do to fix your images and make them look better and make them match with each other. So I'll just switch over to this image right here, and I'm going to hide my gallery and my clips just so we have a little bit more room. Kind of zoom in here. By the way, if you want to kind of reframe this viewer, you can click down on your scroll wheel and drag, and that lets you kind of reframe basically any viewer. So then we can adjust our image here. So maybe I'll take the offset and push that up a little bit. Maybe I'll take the temperature and push it a little bit more blue. Maybe I'll take the contrast and put that up a little. Maybe I'll take the gain, push that a little bit more yellow. Maybe I'll take the lift and just push it tiny bit blue. And now we have this color grade here with just these controls that really makes a huge difference. I can click on this little rainbow sparkle button to turn off my color grades. So here's before and here's after. And depending on the style that you're going for, this might be exactly what you want. And so if you're just getting started in the color page, I would recommend just don't even worry about anything else. Just use the color wheels. That said, there are so many other cool things that you can do in the color page that I just don't have time to go over in this video. If you want to learn more about that, let me know in the comments and I'll make some more videos about it. But what's cool is you can do a color grade on your shot. So let's just make this really blue just so it's easy to see. And then if you want to copy that to another shot, you can just select that shot and then middle button mouse click. That's click down on the scroll wheel of your mouse like this, boop, and that will copy that grade over to what you had selected. Isn't that awesome? So here's the same shot. I'm going to select it, middle button mouse click on this shot, boop. And you can see when I have a color grade on the shot, it adds a little rainbow around the number. So this is pretty much just how you get started. You go through all of your shots and make sure that they look the way that you want and that they kind of match with each other, switching back and forth. This is a whole art in itself. Again, there's so much that I could go over here, but this will get you started. The color page is one of the most robust and powerful parts of Resolve. It's actually how Resolve started, is a color grading app, and then they added the other things in there. And so the color grading aspect of Resolve is very, very mature. Like I said, this is literally what they use for like movies in Hollywood and stuff. So it's pretty cool that we have this tool at our disposal. And of course, remember, all of these pages share the same timeline. So if I switch over to the edit page, guess what? The color grade is in the edit. I don't have to render it out or do anything crazy. It's just there. Now, if you're an audio nerd, Fairlight is where you want to be. Again, all you have to do is just be in the timeline that you want to mix, and then you switch over to Fairlight just by clicking on the Fairlight page. And if you're not an audio nerd, this can look pretty intimidating, but if you are an audio nerd, you should feel right at home. This is pretty much Audition. You can grab the tracks, make them really big, zoom in here, get really detailed with your audio, and pretty much everything that you would assume that you can do, you can totally do. You can go to your media pool, grab media, drag that in for sound effects. You can put them on different tracks. You have a mixer right here where you can adjust the levels of all your tracks. You can fade a clip just by grabbing the little handles here like this. You can add EQ and dynamics and effects and all kinds of things to the track or the clip. I can select the clip and go to the inspector, and there's all kinds of audio things that we can do: volume, pan, pitch. There's a clip equalizer. You can also do this on the track just by clicking on this little blue line. So on track 2, that's where our monster sound is. I could just double click on this EQ, and maybe we'll take the highs down a little bit to make it sound like he's inside of that shed. Make sure we put this where it's supposed to go. Good. Let's make that a little bit more extreme. Yeah, maybe add a little bit of reverb to it. Effects, reverb. Cool. You can also add dynamics to your tracks. If I just double click on this green line, that's going to bring up the dynamics. This is great for doing things like adding a compressor to your dialogue. Pretty much all the stuff that you would expect to be able to do in Audition, you can totally do here in Fairlight. Again, there's just tons to go over. But if you want to get really detailed with your audio, the sky's the limit when it comes to Fairlight. And that brings us to our very last page, the Deliver page. Now, this is basically like Adobe Media Encoder. Over here on the left, we have our render settings, which you can render all different kinds of formats and codecs, all different kinds of options for whatever you want to make. We have presets up here for whatever you want to do. I'll just click the H265 master here, set your name and location. And when you're ready to add the job to the queue, you just click add to render queue. That's going to add it right here. And you can stack as many jobs as you want, and then you just hit render all, and it will render all of the jobs for you. And that's pretty much the Resolve workflow in a nutshell. The big thing that's so great about Resolve is that you can really do the entire process of editing your video, from actually laying out the story in the timeline, adjusting the timing, all of that kind of stuff. You can even do multicam and animation and all kinds of stuff here in the edit page. You can go in and do effects on the Fusion page. You can make graphics on the Fusion page. You can do your color grades in the color page, work with your audio in the Fairlight page, and finally render as many versions as you want or as many timelines as you want using the Deliver page. So the ultimate question is, if you're an Adobe user, can you switch over to Resolve and still do the quality of work you're used to? In my opinion, absolutely no question. The tools inside of Resolve are comparable to the Adobe suite, and especially in the realm of color, I mean, it far exceeds what you can do in Lumetri. Fusion is an incredibly powerful compositing app. Fairlight's great for your audio. Not to mention that the edit page, which is your main workhorse, is absolutely rock solid when it comes to an editing program. This is the best editing app I've used overall, and the coolest part is that it has an amazing free version that you can use for commercial work. So definitely go download the free version. And if you need a little bit more power, some kind of AI effects, some more intense stuff, you can get DaVinci Resolve Studio, the paid version of Resolve, for only $295 just one time. But the free version is amazing. You can use it for commercial work. There's no time limit. There's no watermark. There are some light limitations, but dang, I mean, you can use the free version for just about anything. So if you've been thinking about switching to Resolve, here is your kick in the pants. Do it. Get the free version of Resolve and play with it. Start working. Because I think if you give it a chance, you're going to fall in love. And before long, you're going to be dumping your Adobe subscription. And just a reminder, if you're switching to Resolve and you need some amazing graphics, Motion VFX is where you want to be. Click that link in the description to get a smoking deal on those plugins. Also, if you want to learn more about DaVinci Resolve, I have a whole big old crash course, 5 hours long, right there. All right? I hope it's helpful.